Also, Dave Richards ready to go, and I'm sure he'd be fascinated to hear about insurance talk.
Listen, we'll bring in Dave Richard from CBS Sports right now, and you're being extremely mean to me, Jay. I think it's a perfectly valid question. With all the things, listen, David is a very smart individual. He's one of the premier fantasy minds in the entire country, and I think it's fair to say, David, have you ever given it much thought to whether or not huge musical superstars or just stars in general, if they have, like, who covers their insurance? Do they have a 401k? I don't know. Have you thought about this?
Never in my life.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know. I have no idea. Like I said, I don't know if Coldplay has insurance. I'm sure they do. But I don't know how that works. I don't know how that works.
They probably have what's called a manager.
Right.
Who manages things like their finances and their lives in general so that they can focus on the job at hand. I mean, I'm stunned you don't have one, Dave.
A manager?
Sports talk show host in Sacramento doesn't have, somebody working on his 401k every day and every night?
Yeah, it's called my wife. she's my boss.
I mean, at least it's somebody you can trust. I think.
When I need to go to the doctor and do something, I say, sweetheart, where's the card thingy? I need an appointment. I have no idea. Maybe that's why Coldplay wrote "Fix You." Maybe that was about their insurance. I have no idea. Hi. How's your week, Dave?
It's going better than John Hillman so far.
Yeah.
Better than Daniel Jones so far.
If you're a guy like me, and thank God you're not, there was a fantasy guy I had on my show a couple weeks ago who suggested I pick up Jacoby Brissett. And thank you. And sure. He is now on a bye-bye this week. I picked up, who the hell is it? Is it Case Keenum? Whoever the Redskins starting quarterback.
That's who you want.
So is that who I want, though? Because I feel like an idiot doing it, but I did it.
Well, you're starting him because he played well at the beginning of the year, and he's playing Miami, and that's a defense that's got a lot of big, fat holes in it, and he should be able to exploit them. Although, I will caution you, the interim coach now of the Redskins, Bill Callahan, who you're familiar with from his days with the Raiders, wants to run the football more, wants to lean on that ground game, and they've got Adrian Peterson, but they also have a really suspect offensive line. This is the week to kind of lean on the run game like he's asking, and Adrian Peterson actually is not that bad of a play in fantasy because I think he's got a chance to score on this lowly Dolphins team. But it's also going to be an appealing matchup to throw because the Dolphins' pass rush is basically non-existent. They rank dead last in just about every pass rush metric you can find. And that means Case Keenum's going to have time to throw. I think he can have an adequate game, Dave, talking like 225 yards and a couple of touchdowns.
What do we do with Todd Gurley? Is that just simply a wait and watch?
It's more or less a wait and watch, but this was, although it's to a body part that I didn't think was going to be an issue. It's his quad.
Yeah.
It's going to sideline him. It sounds like he didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday, and Sean McVay has started talking up his other running backs. And usually, when coaches do that unprompted, it means that they're consciously worried about their main guy being ready to play. Now, let's see if he practices on Friday. If he even gets in a limited practice, I'd say he has a good chance of making it happen. But it's a tough matchup against San Francisco. That front seven, as you know, because you're there and you watched it on Monday against Cleveland, it's really good. And Todd Gurley's been a touchdown or bust type of fantasy running back to this point.
Dave Richard joining us, and it's obviously we're definitely getting into the season pretty deep because our phone lines, and by the way, 339-1140, I just saw the one line we had closed open up now, 1-800-920-1140 if you want to get in there. And all kinds of questions on the text line from Jiffy Lube, so let's get right to it. Good morning. Would it be possible to ask the wise Dave Richard if I should start DK Metcalf or DeMarcus Robinson at wide receiver?
If those are the choices, I would go with Robinson as of now. Things will change if Tyreek Hill actually does play this week. There's a chance of that happening, or if Sammy Watkins can make it to a practice today and he ends up playing. But if both those guys are out, then I think that Robinson would be in play as a good flex option, maybe just as much of a boom or bust pick as DK Metcalf, but I think that he's probably going to get more targets than Metcalf.
Can I tell you, I dropped Sammy Watkins in my league.
You did?
I tried to trade.
You just had enough of him.
I put him on the block and was like, hey, first off, I tried to make a couple trades. Nobody bit. And then I said, all right, make me an offer. I went after a couple of teams that had wide receiver issues. Nobody bit. And he's just sitting there languishing on my bench. And I dropped him. because I feel like having Sammy Watkins on my roster, Dave, was it was like if I was on a diet and I had a house full of marshmallows. I don't want the temptation. I don't want to look at a matchup. I'm so tired of Sammy Watkins, dude. And Devontae Freeman, my guy from Florida State, is right behind him. I'm so tired of these guys that every time I bench them, they have a great game, and every time I start them, they completely disappear. I don't know if that's a good strategy or not, but I just decided, you know what? I don't even want the temptation with Sammy Watkins. He's off my roster.
So you're probably going to make another fantasy manager very happy to pick him up off the waivers for absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always the concern I have, is that when you drop a player that you're just so sick and tired of looking at their mugshot on your roster page, you just go, I've had it. But aren't you helping somebody else in your league win, theoretically, by letting him go? I guess in this case, maybe you're not, because you just look at Sammy Watkins as like a mind-melding time bomb.
Yes.
That is not going to help anyone, and therefore maybe you're hurting somebody else in your league. So
that's what I thought.
Happening, you're going to feel like a genius.
That's exactly what I thought. Let somebody else put him on a roster, and let somebody else fall into that Sammy Watkins trap of, I'm going to put you in, and you're going to end up getting me a half a point, or you're going to hurt yourself, or you're going to play every snap and have one catch for 8 yards. It was like a little fantasy time bomb I put in there with Sammy Watkins.
Sure, I just can't help but wonder if you had truly gone after somebody like a bench player on somebody else's team,
maybe,
and have offered up Sammy Watkins instead of dropping him and then picking up somebody off the waiver wire. Yeah, I wonder if that would have been maybe the better, more logical move, because some people might have a guy on their bench like a Peyton Barber or something that they really don't care about, and you could just say, look, I'm tired of Sammy Watkins. I will just make you this offer out of the blue, and they would almost have no choice but to accept it because, quotes, it's Sammy Watkins.
Now, speaking of receivers, half-point PPR, Ronald Jones, Curtis Samuel, or Christian Kirk, if active, got to start one.
If Kirk plays, I'll go with him because it's a great matchup against the Falcons defense that really, I think they forgot how to play defense. Like, that's what it looked like last week. That's why Will Fuller had the game that he had. And then if Will Fuller doesn't play, I still can't start Ronald Jones. I would take the upside with Curtis Samuel.
Calvin Ridley or DJ Moore for their third wide receiver spot?
I will take DJ Moore over Ridley. I think they're both great number 3 receivers this week, but because of the buys and everything else, and because of what he did last week, I think DJ Moore actually has a chance against Tampa Bay to have the safer floor, higher ceiling compared to Ridley, who just seems to be dependent on the big play, and if he doesn't get one, it's kind of curtains for him.
Sometimes I like to check my fantasy knowledge against yours, so I want to try this one and see if you agree or disagree. From the 916 area code, should I trade Tyler Boyd for DJ Chark? Yes! Is that, would you agree?
Well, you're trading the best Cincinnati Bengals receiver for now. Mm-hmm. I mean, AJ Green's supposed to come back at some point. He practiced yesterday, so maybe that's going to happen sooner than later. And you're going to get the best receiver on the Jaguars, period.
Right.
I like what I've seen from Chark.
Me too.
But I like what I've seen from him with Gardner Minshew. I don't know if that will continue if or when Nick Foles comes back under center for Jacksonville. If it does happen, then maybe lower stuff a little bit for Chark. I mean, those two did connect early on, I guess, in the first half. But to me, half of what's making DJ Chark great is just Minshew's unconscious ability to throw it to him no matter who's covering him,
right,
what the situation is. He's getting a lot of deep targets each week. He's getting end zone targets each week. He's kind of playing like a number 1 fantasy receiver. And if you go and look at the season totals, he is a number 1 fantasy receiver, a top 12 guy. So, yeah, trading away Tyler Boyd for DJ Chark doesn't seem like such a bad idea.
All right, let's get to the phone lines, 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. Let's go to Ken. Ken, you are on with CBS Sports' Dave Richard.
Hey, good morning, guys. Happy Friday.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask if I should start Jimmy G or Kirk Cousins at quarterback.
Jimmy G or Kirk Cousins?
Choices. This is it. I'm kind of sorry, but I'd go Garoppolo. I think the matchup against the Rams could actually get better for him if Aqib Talib doesn't play for L.A. I do know about the offensive line. You don't have to tell me about it, Dave. Both starting tackles are going to be out for a while for San Fran. I think that might mean some shorter passes. I think the quick passing game will open up for Garoppolo. And he's got some good receivers that can take advantage of that. They can make a play after the catch. And again, if there's no Aqib Talib, those plays might happen at a higher frequency. So I think volume will favor Jimmy Garoppolo more so than Kirk Cousins, and I would start him.
You and I have often talked about the fact that fantasy leagues are won a lot of times with trades and pickups during the middle of the year, and also not necessarily your top players, but who you're putting in at that second or third wide receiver or running back or flex spot. I'm fascinated, and I think a lot of other people are too, with Terry McLaurin over at with the Redskins out of Ohio State. Last game, and that was against New England, and that defense, that's the first time all year he hasn't caught a touchdown pass, and obviously new coach, quarterback situation, blah, blah, blah. Is McLaurin a type of dude that, where do you have him slated, for example, this weekend against the Dolphins?
Because it's the Dolphins and because Case Keenum is back under center, he is my number 10 ranked receiver.
Wow.
Which is crazy when you think about it, right? Because it's a rookie. Rookies aren't supposed to be this good. They're not supposed to rank this high. But the Dolphins' pass defense is terrible. Their pass rush is brutal. They can't, this is going back to what we talked about with Case Keenum. He's going to have time to throw. When they throw, it's going to go to Terry McLaurin. He's been getting a steady dose of targets each week. I would be stunned if Terry McLaurin didn't have a good game at this point, and he's been playing well enough that he's earned this reputation. Of course he should be in fantasy lineups, and I think he's got a chance to have a very good game against a very bad Dolphins defense.
From our YouTube feed for you, Dave, This person was offered A.J. Green for your guy Darren Waller, but he has Travis Kelce as his starter. Do you pull that move?
Sure. So if you can afford to wait a little bit, I like it a lot because Darren Waller, obviously on bye, you can't use him this week. You've got Travis Kelce, right? That's the tight end that he had is Kelce.
Yeah. Yep.
So he doesn't. So I don't know what he really needs Darren Waller for. This is the beauty of drafting two tight ends, by the way, is because if you hit on both of them, and you knew you were going to quote unquote hit on Travis Kelce. I know he hasn't had an amazing game yet this year, but he's still been a good starter. The fact that Waller's good means that you can trade him in for something else. Seems like A.J. Green's on his way back. Think of it this way. Where was A.J. Green drafted? He was drafted in round 5, round 6, somewhere in that range, right?
Sure. Yep.
Now you're taking a tight end that you took with your last pick or one of your last picks or maybe got off the waiver wire, and you're turning it into A.J. Green weeks before A.J. Green comes back instead of waiting months before A.J. Green comes back. This is a no-brainer. It's a winning deal.
Let's go to Vince. Vince, you're on the phone with the fantasy guru, the expert himself, Dave Richard. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave. So I got a DFS question for you today.
Okay.
So I have my DraftKings lineup set, and it has Zeke, Ingram, and Chris Carson, my flex. I know Todd Gurley and David Johnson are questionable for this weekend. If they happen to both miss the game or one of them misses the game, should I plug in Chase Edmonds and or Malcolm Brown, or should I just stick with my running back core? Thanks.
So it's a double-edged answer in that you probably should do it because the upside is great and their prices are cheap. I'm looking at the DraftKings salaries right now. Edmonds is at $4,600. Brown is at $4,300. I would prefer Edmonds to Malcolm Brown, but you're not going to be the only one doing that. Chase Edmonds is going to be probably the most started player in DFS this weekend because he's taking on the Falcons. They stink. He catches the ball like crazy, and there's not going to be David Johnson to take touches away from him. Whereas in L.A., Malcolm Brown, he's a pretty good running back, but I don't think he's an established pass catcher, and they have Darrell Henderson there, who might end up catching. Dave, he might only get like 4 or 5 catches max.
Right.
Those might be the only touches that Henderson gets. I don't think he's earned enough run. I think he's barely played this year to begin with. So I think that he will see some catches that take some work away from Brown, but it's a tougher matchup for Brown. Edmonds has the super easy matchup. No one's going to take work away from him. He'll be popular, but he'll free up your lineup to go in different directions because his price is so cheap. I would probably just take the free space on the bingo card with Chase Edmonds. And by the way, I'm not a huge fan of Ezekiel Elliott this week in daily. I think his price is prohibitive. You're going to start him in fantasy, of course, but when he's the top, most expensive running back on DraftKings at $8,500, he's been under 3 times value of that, meaning under 25 points every game this year on DraftKings. I don't see how you can start him even if he's playing the Jets.
Let's try to finish up these couple calls while we can. We'll go to Jeff. Jeff, you're on with Dave Richard.
Hey, good morning. Ronald Jones or Miles Sanders, and then also on the wide receiver, DJ Moore or D.D. Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take Moore over Westbrook, although I do think that Westbrook's time will come. Ronald Jones is one notch ahead of Miles Sanders in my rankings this week, Dave. They're both flex options. I just think that Ronald Jones will probably touch the ball more than Sanders. And Sanders is playing at Minnesota, and he's been losing playing time to Jordan Howard. So Jones is the pick.
All right, let's get to our last call here. Javier, you're on with Dave Richard. Go ahead, Javier.
How you doing, Carmichael, Dave, and Richard? How you doing, sir?
Hello.
I just had a question. I have Lockett, Will Fuller, and Marquise Brown with DJ Chark in my flex, but I don't know if Brown's a solid start. Should I put Chark in my third wide receiver spot, take Brown out of my lineup, Hollywood Brown that is, and put Carlos Hyde as my flex?
Interesting.
It really comes down to whether or not Brown plays.
Right.
I would make the move, first of all, to put Chark in at receiver and move Hollywood Brown to the flex.
Yep.
Brown hasn't practiced this week. We know he's got an ankle injury. For a receiver who's known for his speed, and that's it, that's something that could really limit him and make him a less than desirable fantasy choice. So you could get away from Marquise Brown, I think, this week and go with Carlos Hyde, who does have a really good matchup. But if he practices in full on Friday and John Harbaugh says all the right things in his Friday press conference, like, yeah, he's going to be fine, he's going to play, don't worry about it, then, yeah, I mean, Brown's got great upside, and it's a great matchup for him against Cincinnati and their shoddy defense.
Well, I only got 30 seconds, and I want to make sure people know where they can hear you, but I have to ask you, Austin Eckler, we were surprised last week, I think a little bit, how effective he was in the receiving game. Is he a start again for you this weekend?
He is, especially in PPR leagues, because I think those catches are going to rack up for him.
Okay, where can people hear, watch, and see your pretty face?
In an hour, we're going to be live on CBSSports.com talking fantasy for a full hour.
Mm-hmm.
So you can catch that starting at 9 a.m. out your way in California, getting you ready with DFS information, help you get a great lineup and maybe some sneaky plays in daily in week number 6.
All right, every time Dave comes on, I always see at least a couple of you hit him up on Twitter, and he's nice enough to answer those that he can at Dave Richard on Twitter, and you know where to find him. He just told you the best in the business, joining us every Friday from Florida usually at 10:35 his time. Buddy, always appreciate you through the years. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you in a week.
You do the same. Good luck in your leagues this weekend.
The Drive.